in circles until you either one, run out of gas or energy, or you just get lost and quit. And that's what we're finding with a lot of people trying to diagnose these networks these days. They understand the protocol, or they understand how to use a lab scope or how to use a multimeter, but they just don't know where to start. So that's why we're starting with communication networks. And what we're going to do is we're going to break them down. And the easiest way to break them down is let's start from the beginning and build one up from where they started and how they're constructed. Because if you know how something's constructed, that makes it so much easier to deconstruct it, essentially. So let's start with, what did we have before we had networks? Well, we had stuff like this. Now, this could be your dad's old IROC, or it could be an old Ford truck. It really doesn't matter. But what we had was a lot of redundancies. So this is a picture of a coolant temp sensor, and the engine control module needed it so it could control fuel. Makes sense, right? Well, the engine or the instrument panel cluster also needed the engine coolant temperature sensor so it could display it on the dash. And this worked fine. I mean, sometimes we replaced the wrong sensor, sometimes we diagnosed the wrong sensor, but whatever. But as cars got a little bit newer, then we started getting EVAP systems. Now, the engine control module needs the fuel level sensor. Well, obviously, the gauge needs it because we don't want to run the car out of gas. And we got VVT systems, so now the engine control module needs the oil pressure sender, and then we have that on the dash. So we started getting to the point where we needed modules to have some type of ability to communicate or share information, and we also got to the point in technology or advancements where they could do that. So this is a solution. You can see in this picture, now we have our coolant temp sensor, and it's sending its signal to the engine control module, but instead of having another coolant temp sensor, now we're just sharing information. We're sharing information on the network because that's what we just created. This is a simple network, 2 modules sharing information. Here's an example of just a simple network. It's just modules talking to each other, sharing data. And it doesn't have to be 4 modules, it could be 3 modules, it could be 2 modules, but this is a network in its simplest form. But nowadays, they don't just share information. They also work together to create systems. So some of the earliest systems I can remember is the ABS module teaming up with the powertrain control module, and it created traction control systems. So now when you're in that parking lot, you're doing donuts and making a big smoke cloud, the ABS module tells the PCM, hey, tires are spinning, so the PCM takes away your throttle. And you got to find the button to turn it off. No, I'm just kidding. But then we have our old radar systems that were just the beep, beep, beep. Now they're working with the big screen TVs and the cameras, and now they're creating park assist. And this wasn't too bad. I mean, it makes sense, and it doesn't really change how we diagnose. We just have to understand how they work together. And it gets even a little more complicated than this. Now we have all 4 of those modules, and they created one of the first ADAS systems. So now we have our radar module here, and it sees a pedestrian. And before, all it would do is tell the driver, hey, beep, 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 you're going to hit something. But now on cars, it tells the ABS module to pump the brakes, and it stops the car for you. And if your brakes aren't strong enough because your engine's too strong, then it will talk to the engine control module, and it'll take your throttle away. And all it is 4 separate systems talking to each other, working together.